This is the Magical Bros. We're all sitting here. I'm a dumb guy that's also smart. This is a smart dumb guy, and this is a dumb smart guy. We're all going to talk about some magical shit.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yep. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, everybody, I'm Lus,
Hey,
uh,
everyone, I'm Steven.
and we're joined with Zaldor.
Howdy.
And you can try and figure out which one is the dumb dumb, and which one is the smart dumb, and which one is the dumb smart. But we're gonna hop into some topics here. We're gonna jump back into our conversations we were just having, and I hope you enjoy the listening experience.
Yes, sir. So we were just deep diving into how, I'm getting into, I'm more into high magic, not the ceremonial kind, but the kind that involves actually going out into nature and collecting ingredients to like make a wand or whatever magical item you want and actually shoot literal fireballs or whatever you like. And then and then you were talking about sigil magic, and so I would love to hear more about how you think um, they're both useful and important. And you were mentioning something about the adept.
Is that like more druidry though?
Which aspect of druidy like?
Because like at the end of druidry, basically the tree that you've been associating with the most gives you a wand when you ask it.
Ooh, I didn't know about this actually. Like I
That's
haven't studied druidry.
that's what I've found anyways. But like most of it's oral traditions that have been passed down, and like there's so few stuff in writing. You could find like John Michael Greer's books on it and stuff, but like normally they have the rites just like you would in masonry or masonry that you have to pass through the different grades and stuff. But druidry is like very tactile, very hands-on. This is you interacting with the environment.
Hmm. So tell me more about that because yeah.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to say, I just recently reread this book, The Conversations in the House of Life, which is a new translation of the ancient Egyptian Book of Thoth. And basically, the entire thing is like a dialogue between like the supposed master, which is Thoth, and then the student. And the student is referred to the one who loves knowledge. And basically, it paints a good diagram for something like what a lot of people are interested in regards to magic these days, like the holy guardian angel, like the knowledge and conversation. And so like this book, which is based off of a real place, the House of Life, back in the day, what served as an academy. It served as like a library, and it also served as like a magical training ground. And so you would like learn all this stuff. But like the whole point of this dialogue is like the master emphasizes that like the act of like writing, or by extension speaking or reading, or even more so the act of like studying a subject, and then taking that knowledge and sharing it effectively, is all should all be thought of as high magic itself. And so it's sort of like reading this book recently and discussing it with some friends. It sort of reconstructed my views on high magic. My original view was there's high magic and there's low magic, and like most everything is low magic, and there's a little bit of high magic that people actually do. And then it evolved into, well, high magic is actually what it boils down to, and some may disagree with this, but it boils down to being Christian magic. And what I mean by that is it's like hyper fixated, like making sure that everything is done at the right time, at the right place, in the right setting, with the right tools, with the right words, with the right movements. Everything has to be down to a T. That's what high magic is. And then upon reading this book, now I've started to expand to this notion of like, okay, high magic can be something as simple as like how we communicate. And ultimately, I think that that is a very important point, because that's how we share our magic outside of like a subjective point of view. I think most practitioners want their magic to extend to objective reality, and like isn't that the idea, is to utilize your will and your thoughts and your imagination to like shape things the way you want.
That's like a really tactile crowley definition. Sorry, but like I think that you're right, and I think that Christian magic would almost be in its own category these days. But it seems like there's a bunch of different sects. So I was thinking like low magic is essentially what you would find like voodoo or like just casting stuff or like sigils, and then high magic is literally ceremonial magic. But Steven's telling us that that's basically we're kind of thinking in the wrong ballpark, or at least I was thinking in the wrong way. Like I should have been like, oh yeah, magic is really real, and you can like do something with that, and you can really have that as a tactile part of the way you involve yourself in your environment and experience your reality. But there's no way to like break free of what society puts on us as our conditioning and all this other junk. But I want to hear more on Stephen, your definition of what high magic is, that it is not necessarily just ceremonial stuff, or doing high magic is like the medieval way where you do stuff at a specific time when under a specific planet at a specific hour, etc.
Yeah, so actually, I think the best way to like start this off would be with low magic. So like so low magic, I think is greatly misunderstood too, because low magic is real as well. So let's look at intuition, right? Intuition in and of itself, I don't believe is a magical organ. However, when you take everything that you have no evidence for, which is pretty much anything, and you start doing things with it freely, regardless of any kinds of uh, belief in what may or may not happen, that's low magic. And so, like, let's say you start with your instincts. This is where I think, like, if I was designing for low magic for the neophyte, I would be like, okay, you do instinct, intuition, consciousness, etc. You know, just the basics, that basic ladder, if you know what I mean. And then, um, don't pretend you know how those things work, and don't try to go out and read a specific book or a specific regime of knowledge. Instead, freely take what feels right to you in kind of like a chaos magic way and see what effects it has. So with intuition is a great example. If you just treated um, the intuition of flirting and the kind of nuances of it, like there's no rules, and you just try to get good at that, um, you will be able to have people fall in love with you and all this kind of stuff. And that's not, and the difference between making someone fall in love with you in the way where you're good at flirting versus it being low magic is low magic, you can actually in real time uh, violate the context. Whereas if it's just psychological, you do have to follow certain rules in order for it to work. So that I think is low magic. And then just real quick, high magic. High magic is literally the kind of magic that we remember when we were kids. I genuinely think that that's real, and I think it's a huge psyop. And it's probably happened recently in magical history, probably in the 19th century, um, where magic was reduced to these kinds of rigid ceremonial things, in my opinion, where magic was actually real, where you could actually shoot a fireball out of your hand, but then it got reduced by the institutions of the church and by all the like cultures of the time, and then it was lost forever, essentially. But high magic
Well,
is literally what we think of as kids.
I think it like for me it like boils down to like the seriousness level of it. It's like it makes me think of like your work with the Saturnarian stuff that we talked about. And honestly, like order and restrictions go hand in hand. Like you can look at it both ways. Like a high magic ritual is extremely limited in regards to like where you have to be, what you have to be saying, what you have to be wearing, what does the room smell like, where's the sun at, where's the moon at, where's Jupiter? Like you are restricting all the things in a sense of like what you will not allow. So through the order, and all this really is in my mind, is like I see there's a lot of power in like a list. Like people, especially like biblically with like scripture, like people are always like quoting and talking about the Ten Commandments. And it's like all that is a list, and like it boils down to just that. It's like when you like I'm thinking right now, like a magical, like you take two magical operations and they're exactly the same in every way except one of them you like made a list for. I just feel like that one has more like it's more amped up towards like being high magic because it's just more ordered and there's like maybe not necessarily more restrictions, but it like orders things so that like the restrictions become apparent. And ultimately it's like sigil magic, for example, is definitely low magic, but like I'm not saying you can't do high level, high magic sigil work, but at a basic like common level that most people approach it, it's like, oh yeah, like the level of detail and thought isn't like as imperative as like, it's one thing if you just like, oh, I need a sigil, and you mock one up real quick and then you follow all the protocols, you place it somewhere and forget about it, whatever, and then it manifests supposedly. And like doing that same thing but knowing like it's Wednesday, and like, oh, like I'm gonna wait an hour and a half so that it's 7 o'clock, and then make it then I'm not necessarily saying it's now become high magic. High magic to me is more serious in the sense of like you list it all out and you go through it all and you make sure everything gets a check mark and you get 100% on that test, is what I'm saying. Low magic allows for more like flexibility in regards to like, I don't know, it just seems like order and restriction go hand in hand in my eyes when it comes to these sorts of things. Does that make any sort of sense?
It does, but it also feel like that's like Hermetic Mage's trap from like too much Golden Dawn, where extra effort equates to something actually working better in some regard, like making an elaborate ritual and then adding your own steps. And then you have, like you said, you have to have a list of check boxes that you basically have to work down. And I think that you working with magic is like an impromptu thing. It should be that it is in the moment, that these things arise as an experience that you have. And the truest, best magic that anyone can produce, even if it doesn't have to be categorized as low magic or high magic. It's like authenticity. It's like you're involved in the experience of creation somehow.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with both of that. I think it really is about um what do you understand to be happening that you hold as true or real, and how many different degrees of freedom
This
does
is
that permit?
sorry to cut you off. This is exactly what we were talking about before we hit record. And it's like this notion of context is essential. Like I was saying, like if you know how sigils work, suddenly it becomes a big ordeal when you're scrolling. Okay, so what I was saying in the other recording was that it's context is super important, because like it's this notion of ignorance is bliss, in the sense of like if you understand how sigils work and their context on like how they operate at like a base level of like just knowing that like seeing them and then looking away from them it is enough to like leave an impression on your subconscious. That's just the basis of how they work. So what I'm saying is like the context is key. Once you're like aware, for example, of how sigils work, and you're scrolling through your Facebook page, for example, your feed, and you're scrolling and somebody posted some sigil that they found or they made, it doesn't matter what it does or why they posted it. What matters is you're looking at it. You can look at it in the sense of no, regardless you're feeding it, but what's more implicative is like it is having influence over you somehow. If it works, you have to have the predication that this thing is actually working. But my point is like well-known sigils like the 72, like Goetia, the evil spirits of Solomon. Like now that you have this context of information, you suddenly can't just mindlessly scroll and be like, oh yeah, I saw that. You have to like take some sort of action. So what I do is like most of the time, like I will like snooze that person or completely unfollow them, or like, because you don't want to leave the entire group. Some of the other knowledge is useful, but if these random people are posting these sigils, whether they're your friend or they're in some social group online, like not necessarily that there's an agenda behind that other than like they're posting it on the internet and you're feeding it somehow. It's more so the implications of like knowing what you're looking at and knowing like it's now taking effect. And so the only way to circumvent it I guess in a practical and magical sense, is to like put up barriers. Like you always, no matter what, you always have the ability to choose. You don't have to just. It's not like everybody's casting the most powerful super wizard spells of all time. It's like, it's very easy to like set up boundaries, and like it can get to the point where like somebody. Here's an example. Like when President Trump was being elected, I saw all these blog articles about like how these witches in the world who had come together were like talking about how like our spells aren't working. There's some sort of shield around Trump.
Oh, I remember
It's just
this.
so
Yeah.
funny. It's just so funny. It's just because Trump he's not operating within that. He doesn't care. He's not operating within that system. There's no like magical shield around him. It's just predicated as simply on the belief that like, especially when you get higher up in the food chain and the social network of reality on the earth, like people are going to try and influence you from every which direction, whether you're at the top or you're at the bottom. And so like you just have to, well, what I'm ultimately saying is like there's a lot of power in like understanding the context of something and saying like no thanks or like not for me, and like almost like a switch where you're able to just turn it off where it's not like affecting you in that way. And it's a weird gray area with sigils, because you can be like, nope, I'm not having it, but the predication of the context of the knowledge implies that like even if you do that, it's seeping into your subconscious mind. So you have to take some course of action, I feel like, if you want to combat that. Either don't be involved with those things in your algorithm at all, which sometimes can't be the most fun case, but like ultimately like you have to have some sort of like protocol system to be able to be like, yeah, I just saw that and I need to like deal with it appropriately, whether that be leaving a comment, spreading information on the subject, whether that be a personal journey of, hey, like that's not going to affect me. But ultimately what I'm saying is like you get into a point where you're like a pious and religious individual, for example, like you can go ahead and do a ritual and try and cast a spell on me. There's a lot of power upon like faith and religious context of whatever people believe in, but like I come from like a Christian standpoint, so what I'm trying to say is like, okay, go ahead, cast a spell at me, do a ritual, think whatever you want of it. Like my path is ordained by God. Like like I don't have to be concerned about any of that, even if I come across, you know what I mean? And I think to some point we can get to a point where we can condition ourselves to like to set up like mental blocks for like subconscious things too. It's like a superpower these days to be able to drive around and see a whole bunch of brand new advertising and like not have it eventually seep into your life with a purchase somewhere.
Right. Oh,
So-
that's such a great example. Oh, go ahead, Salter.
But I'll say this real quick. I think that Trump does play magical spheres based on just some of his body language during like reports and general talks. And then what's to say, based on what you just now, Lust, what's to say that something like the Starbucks logo isn't nefariously siphoning your life force every time you even fucking glance at it, right? Like what we know that stuff is taking place, and they probably have channels set up just for specifically that, or they have a specific power set up with that logo or sigil that is empowering it further, like magic to work for magic. And then I want you to say what you said, but I had that experience with the
And real quick, like power is knowledge. Like, yeah, you know that. So you see the Starbucks logo and you're in the moment thinking like, you know what, screw you. I'm not going to go buy Starbucks right now, or never again, whatever you want to, approach it as. But like, it's happening all the time. That's why companies are always fighting for our attention. But like at the very basic level, like logos are like the subconscious power that businesses and corporations use to like get you to buy things without you even necessarily thinking about it. But if you're able to actively like, and it's hard to do, like, can you imagine driving around your town and every logo you see, individually addressing each of them like as a list in your head and like a criteria, and like that's just crazy. Like, so like at a certain level, you have to train yourself to just be like ultimately it comes down to like, yeah, I know I'm being bombarded and all these thoughts about like what I'm going to get to eat or where I'm going to get coffee are like pervasive, but like ultimately I have the choice. And if I want, I can save money and go home and make coffee at home.
Yeah, I just want to say too, like this is another interesting paradox where it's like, sensitives and experiencers and mediums and people of this nature, and even on the cognitive side, people like Adam Savage and Vsauce. And for those who aren't familiar, that basically it's like, imagine an experiencer or a medium who's less into like experientiality and presence, but they do that for cognition, and so they can just move their thoughts around as if they're colors or textures, and they're highly sensitive to that, and they can fully manipulate thought and all of psychic reality. Like there are people like that who are super sensitive to sigils, and they're constantly doing what like we are talking about, where they have to always second guess. But then the paradox is like, then there's stupid people, right? And stupid people show exactly this weird paradox of like, they're too stupid to be affected by something, or are they too stupid to know they're being affected by something? And then the answer is both, but also neither. And when it comes to the neither part, that's where I think like the future comes in, and even Generation Alpha and people who are chronically online on the internet. If it's neither, like in the sense that you're neither too dumb to not notice it, but you're also but it both affects you and doesn't affect you, right? If both those things are off, like it's no longer duality, it's more just about anything goes, and it's not about any particular coordinate of where magical influence and your subjective or objective influence is affected. Then you just see all the directions that were always there, and then you begin to realize, oh shit, we're worried about the wrong thing. We're still thinking way too linearly. It's like, oh, there's a Starbucks logo over there, and maybe if I knew all the logos and all the things that were around me 360, then I would know what I'm ignoring and what I'm actually actively participating in. And it's like, no, it's not that simple, because there could be infinite spatial dimensions, and you only see 0.001% of the electromagnetic spectrum. And this is where we enter, I think, into non-dual consciousness, into the sense of the future where we'll be able to see all this, all the infinities, and still have to deal with the same problems, being affected by them, but at the same time actively participating in them. But it'll be non-dual in the sense that we never make the mistake of like, all right, I can just, because I'm starting here, that means that I'm always already inevitably affected. Or the other way around, because I'm not starting anywhere, that doesn't mean I'm inevitably not affected. And that's what we should have. It's just like, don't assume one way or the other, and then have access to all the infinities. And that's where I think we're headed, in a way. And that's always been almost the ball game,
I don't think they're concerned with like us, because they already got us. I mean, like, what concerns these corporations is like the newer generations. Like, if you look at the one of the newer generations now, studies find that like when these people are old enough to like drink and purchase alcohol, it's down like a staggering amount, like 87% for that generation. And I don't know which one it is, but like the studies are showing that like the younger generations aren't buying alcohol anymore. And so like it's almost like how cigarettes are almost being phased out, in the sense of like, every kid's gonna grow up and turn 18 and they're going to go buy a disposable vape. And so like the whole marketing switches. I don't feel like they're really worried about like the boomers or the millennials. They're worried about like the younger generations, because they've already got us.
That's true.
The whole landscape's going to change. I didn't think about that. That's true. Okay. Well, okay. Let me real quickly what my experience was. I had like saved up a bunch of chemicals in my brain and had Delta 8, and I saw that creation and energy going off of yourself into these little bits and pieces. So when the Delta 8 hit me and I was like in full throttle, this is fucking weird and trippy, and I'm trying to get my bearings. Like at first I honestly thought it was my heartbeat, but the deal was I realized that I was writing manifestation as it was going into something. So I was giving something attention, and all of my presence and energy was going into that thing. So even when I like sat down to pray for a minute, I could feel little bits and pieces spiraling off for the letters and words. It was bizarre as I was thinking them up. So that's how I figured out that it wasn't my dang heartbeat that I was percepting, but it was like bouncing between my perception of what I was doing and the manifestations as they were written off. Like I was inside of the thought forms as they were feeding all these symbols and pieces and people and animals that were around me at the time. So I'm thinking that on a tactile level, because our perception isn't always there, this is going on in the background tremendously. So wouldn't that say that your subconscious of something in your environment is sending it tremendously amounts more energy on that bandwidth than rather you giving it super conscious energy? Unless you're like choosing to do so, I guess would be the actual difference.
Oh, that's so. Oh my God, that opens up a whole new arena of questions for me because, yes, I totally agree. And then it's like, I feel like we're not even paying attention to the fact that the infrastructure in which the bandwidth and which frequency is actually being perturbed, is actually traveling through, may be artificial. I know, Zaldor, you probably definitely thought of this because with Dean and all that, but I'm curious what you would think, Lust, because it's like we're also assuming something else. We're assuming that the pips that are traveling along this frequency, along this bandwidth, we're not asking questions like, is the etheric plane broadband? Or did metaphysical Verizon come in and already take over that bandwidth? Like,
well, here's
we
the
don't know.
thing. Like, I was thinking about past memories too, and then that got me thinking about things way further back in the past. And I was like thinking about castles and medieval shit. I was like, oh shit, I'm sending that energy too. I felt my thought forms right off onto them as I was perceiving them, and it was just like vague iterations of it. So like, shit, stuff from the future is affecting the past in this way as well. And no, it absolutely has to do with different bandwidths. I would say,
Well, they're
like radio.
they're proving that. I'm sorry to cut you off. They're proving that with quantum research. I mean, Google's quantum willow chip just performed like 10 septillion, like
Yes,
data worth like 10
calculation.
septillion years, which is like longer than the scientific understanding of the lifespan of like the universe. They did like 10 septillion years of computational data in like 2 minutes. And they're finding things like, I'm reading these things and I don't know what to believe. So I ask people like you, but they're finding things where it's like, oh yeah, no, what you're doing right now in the present is actually affecting your past. So what you're doing in the future right now is affecting what's happening to you right now. And it's like, oh my goodness.
Yes, but no, that's so I love that you brought up quantum computers because that's so definitively true. And this actually goes perfect into Zaldor's experience. I think in the future, and I think Generation Alpha are going to be the ones most highly sensitive to this, or all the lost generations. You know how it always skips a generation, like baby boomers, good, Generation X, go fuck yourself, and then there's millennials, yay, and then Gen Z, it's like sorry you're screwed, and then Gen Alpha, it's like woohoo, yay, iPhone at 6 years old. Like it's like that weird thing, and I'm sure it's not that crude, but you know what I mean. Like there's this weird kind of like golden ratio thing going on. But the crazy thing is, I think Gen Alpha and all the lost generations, what they're going to have access to is exactly what you're talking about, Zaldor, but with the quantum computers. So they're going to see a quantum computation, all the parallel universes and all the multiverses when they get close to a quantum internet or a quantum computer, and they're actually going to be able to see it, whether it be through the output when you're prompting an AI, or actually in the air with 6G, 7G, 8G, and with just being near the humming of the fiber optic cables of the quantum internet and the new photon chips and just Willow. Everyone in Gen Alpha is definitely going to be able to feel those septillion years of Willow running through all that compute. And so that's why I think they need to be more like you, Zaldor, where if you can actually see manifestation happening in real time, and you can actually track it and then figure out what you are inevitably, subconsciously or unconsciously, how you're participating in that, and then control it, then boom, dude, that's like, not only is that like being able to control the astral, you'll be able to control all the way up the tree, I think. All 4 worlds, if you get lucky.
But we already know that the future is controlling the past. Like all three are synonymously having an influence over each other. You physically have to go through the steps in order to make the manifestations come to fruition. Like you have a little narrative that you have to go through. So if that's the case and the future is affecting the past, then we've already built the future. It's not some kind of dreamy whatever. Like I've always been a big thing. My key phrase is that memories are your past, but your imagination and your creative thoughts and your ideas are just memories from the future, and that's 100% true. My thing is like, are they literally trying to open a black box? Because they could not be that dumb, but at the same time, I know they're going to throw enough money at it to build said black box. But they're also going to have some kind of simulations before they open said Pandora's box, surely.
Yes. Which makes me think, like how I always say to you guys, like there's no base reality. I really think we need to take that seriously, because like, and that's not to say that this is a simulation and that all that exists are simulations per se, but it's more so the case that, like you said, if we're already being affected by the future, we would also 100% be affected by the fact that we'd be 100% affected by people exploiting the fact that that reality has no bottom and reality has no top, in the same way that reality doesn't have a restriction in terms of temporal direction. So that's we already got rid of that dogma. We know that time can have multiple dimensions and multiple directions, but then we have to do that with dimension itself, or with realities themselves. Once we realize that there is no linear, like, oh, this has to happen and then that has to happen, or reality's like this and that's why it does this. Once we remove that off the table, I think there's hope, because then we just become these, there's a word for this. This is not an original thought. It was, there was this word from this book called the Scintillect hypothesis. And this is, of course, the techno interpretation, so I think there is a magical one. But my favorite techno version of what I think we're going to be when we have access to this capacity is called infomorph commonalities. And it's just like these kind of hyper-computational, basically individualized yet decentralized personality matrices and engrams and all that stuff. And we're just going to be surfing the I think it's called the Endra web. We're going to be surfing the Endra web and exploring the Akashic records for all eternity. And that, I think, is really going to happen by like, and I'm not even, I mean like 2100
like,
or something.
I was thinking about this earlier today. What's the difference now between like your standard LLM and like accessing, quote unquote, the Akashic records? Why would I need to go to the Akashic records? Can you give me an example of why I would need to astral project and go there to get data that an LLM couldn't give me?
Yes, that's the funny thing. It's like, only if you're retarded do you have to like do that. But like, if you don't know how to use AI, ooh, sucks for you, buddy. Now you have to astral project and waste years trying to figure that shit out. Haha.
Am I right? Is like prompting an LLM literally just like modern day techno magic, like astral projection going to the Akashic records?
This is where we're going to differ a little bit, because it's not even maybe it has to do with Akashic records, because I could get a Vedic astrology reading that's super authentic and super intuistic and super connected to whatever psychic thing that the person that is doing my chart in it gets, like a very tactile reading. But if I just punch that shit up on Claude or Grok, that's going to be like, oh yeah, it's this in this date, and you should probably watch out for this. And it's this and this date, and you should probably watch out for this. I don't get the same kind of feeling. And we're going to come to the same thing with like art pretty damn soon. If not 2026, then 27 for sure. Like, we're going to see the difference between authenticity and something that's cranked out of a vending machine.
Like, half the things you guys have said have just made me think about Lane. Like, you're talking about basically Wired, how like, oh no, the Wired isn't like the internet, it's the real world actually. And then like you're also talking about like all these other notions that like just make me think of the show. It's like memory is such a core component. It's like I've thought about it for like 9 years. What does she mean when she says memory is merely a record? You just have to rewrite that record. And what we know about like quantum entanglement and how we can quantumly affect the past by being here now, it almost seems like I can rewrite memories to make that like what happened in the past.
Yes.
So weird.
Based on what you thanks to those, Steve, I'm thinking like we're going to enter, whether we really to or not, these following generations, and they may already be experiencing it on a different level, which is why like previous generations experienced what like we always get the kids these days meme, because they're in a totally different frequency of understanding. It doesn't matter how grounded they are or not, because their base level of reality is completely fucking way different from whatever their parents are experiencing. But that's just to say, we are our own in our own individual subjective universes. We're projecting and reflecting onto the environment, and it's giving us some kind of feedback loop that gives us our little experiences that we're meant to run through. I'm thinking that's going to go to like some kind of super exponential level if we enter this new space with this black box and everything else being affected. Because essentially, the other day in group text, me and Brandon were fighting. Grok, make Brandon spill his coffee on himself. Grok, put Zaldor in a bikini, essentially. And it's like, no, that's not how it is today. But obviously, the joke is that in the near future, that's pretty much what's going to be fucking happening.
Right, it's going to literally be happening to your solid light that can your solid light holographic avatar that can actually taste, touch, and do all these things and be affected by the laws of physics. So I totally agree that it's a huge issue. And I just wanted to say, to add to your point, Zaldor, real quick, it was like I think the major issue. Oh, and this gets into memory too. The major issue becomes, especially with these LLMs, yes, you can prompt it and achieve the Akashic records in the Library of Babel. However, two things are not being acknowledged there. One, that, and this is just my opinion, one, that everything is flux. So even though you're in the Akashic records using the LLM, the Akashic records wasn't even the same Akashic records once. So what makes us think that we don't have to, like, we can't substitute the work, like always what you're saying, Zaldor, and this is where I'm trying to link it to. It's like, even if you have you can use LLMs and you're great at prompt engineering, and you can't tell the difference between good art and authentic art, it all just merges, right? That doesn't mean it's like, oh, there's no difference anymore and we can't tell the difference, and oh well, it's Westworld. No, it's the opposite. It's what you said. Now you enter into the super exponential where you have to do infinitely more work. And now back to what Lust was saying, I think memory, whatever memory is, especially in serial experiments lane, whatever memory is already contending with these issues. Memory itself as a substance is already dealing with this hyper-computational paradoxes all the time. And hence why Lane says, all you gotta do is just, rewrite it. And it's like, yeah, because there is no difference between memory and writing. Because when you're remembering something, you're not, just on a neuronal level, when you're remembering something, that is not the same neuron that existed prior, that actually experienced that memory. Like that neuron dies like 30 minutes, and so does the information. A lot of people don't know this. Your neural metabolism does not save the information after 30 minutes of a neuron, even if that neuron didn't die. And so literally what you're remembering is you hallucinating information at the quantum level, and you're actually making that happen. So you're actually manifesting something out of nothing all the time. And so that's what I think Lane is getting at on one level. One way we could read it is like, yeah, there's no difference between memory and writing, because you're literally making it up. Memory is made up. And now you can go in any directions with that and experiment, I think.
I think we're going to enter into weird hyperspace for a little while, where we are being sold clones of ourselves that can absorb the cyber magic attacks that are going to happen to for a little while. Gosh dang, man. Think about that shit.
Whew. Oh my God.
It's going to be awesome. Imagine if I had two of me.
I think I'm excited about sleeves. I don't know if you guys know about Alter Carbon and their notion of sleeves, but it's basically just clones where one person can just have infinite clones of themselves, and so if their body only survives 400 years, they just have insurance, and so they transfer their consciousness to a new body, and then that's another 400 years and yip de doo dah. But the thing that I think is never mentioned in this, and I don't think a lot of people think of this, but magic is already has a notion of this bilocation. Imagine the techno version of this, where it's not that you can always just move your consciousness to a new sleeve, to a new body, and you don't have to worry about ever dying. It's more so the case that you could be conscious in an infinite amount of bodies at once, and they're all you. So it's not like all the clones have their own consciousness and they just agree with you. No, you are literally a quantum fractal where, like, imagine you have 50 phones and they're all connected to the same Wi-Fi network. And so when you click on one part of the phone and then you give instructions, all the other 49 phones do their own thing, but it's literally you doing it. And so imagine you're in 50 places at once and all you literally are seeing through 50 different eyes. It's not like there's 49 different yous. There's 50 yous all looking through the same eyes, and they're all literally you that you're controlling, like a robot. That I'm excited about. I think that's going to change everything, because then that's immediate. That's literally the physical manifestation of the highest spiritual manifestation of, like, God's divine contraction. Like basically I'm God is himself as himself in his first aspect, but he's never himself as any aspect that he could have chosen, kind of thing. And you're literally going to have a quantum consciousness version of that, I think.
That might be a little while, I think. But wouldn't it be cheaper to run simulations for a bit unless you have, like, a need for multiple clones? And on the reverse side of that, isn't quote unquote God or infinity going to get bored of seeing the same couple of iterations coming back onto the playing page? Oh, Zaldor number 3201 just got created. Whoopee. This one's into clay pottery. Yay.
No, but this is the funny thing. I don't think that, at least the second part, God is smarter than we are in the sense that he experiences everything as new, infinitely new all the time. And so that's kind of the same paradox that you see in some theology, where it's like, if God has predestination, do we have free will? Right? That's always the thing. If God knows everything, then does that mean he knows everything in the sense that all timelines are fixed, or does he know everything because even though we have free will, he can still perfectly predict? And I think it's that one. I think it's like God is so intelligent and omniscient that even though everything has no laws attributed to it, he can still know exactly what's going to happen. And so therefore he's never bored, because everything is in flux in that way. But that's just my opinion. I'm not sure. But then to the first thing you said, I do think it's going to be a while, and it's definitely going to be cheaper to do simulations. I just think it's going to be a niche, because, like, if it kind of goes back to the boredom point that you were mentioning, like, if everyone's just running simulations on the cheap, there's definitely going to be a bunch of quadrillionaires in some equivalent of a Dyson sphere or a Death Star, and they're just kind of bored, and they're kind of like, you know what, fuck that economy, like, let's just build bilocation techno magical clones of ourselves, and let's try to fight God and kill him. Like, they will definitely 100% do that shit, or attempt to, and fail,
No. Oh, look, the 32 Tim Cooks that are on Venus destroyed God. Now we're all free for at least the next 50 years until he reconfigures himself into a new permanent in our universe or something.
Yeah, dude. I think every day is going to be that kind of fucking intense awesomeness of, like, what the fuck?
You're gonna up in the morning in the year 2050, and it's just gonna be like a fucking spectrum of rainbow assaulting you with data.
Yeah, I definitely think that's where we're heading. And the most fun part, and this is why I like Warhammer 40K, if you guys are familiar with it, I think I mentioned it a few times, but because I really think all this stuff is going to happen by 2100, if not 2200, and but when you just think about the law of large numbers, and I don't mean the actual law of large numbers. I just mean if you just think about it in terms of how large numbers can get. I mean, imagine a year 40,000. Here we are worried like, oh yeah, we're going to wake up in this year and get hit with the data. It's like, imagine a year 40,000, what that's going to look like. What is the physical universe in that sense?
2 or 3 times, preferably. Gosh dang. Ugh. Okay. This also loops back into what you and I were talking about the other day. I'm seeing this thing of we have eclipses that seem to reflect what we're experiencing in the mass consciousness. So like, what was that airplane movie that was really popular year before last? And then like immediately a week or two after, we started getting like an excess of planes falling out of the sky and like a lot of aircraft issues. It's like, well, no, they're just getting people to manifest stuff on a mass consciousness scale. So if you can also get that said entity to have some kind of conjoined experience, a la the eclipses, which is, you know, literally the universe talking to us on a planetary level, then it reflects back over in a reverse chronological order. So we're going to see Warhammer 40K come to fruition at some point, but it is already written to take place over a period of however many 5,000 years or so, okay?
Yes.
But that's going to Harry Potter's going to take place, and we'll see magic come onto the playing field for like the common man finally, and it's going to be accessed through the ego self through some means of cybernetics, I'm sure. And then okay, that does sound scary, but I do think that's going to come to fruition in some weird ass ways, and we'll see the drawbacks of that and the fun sides of that. And then we're also going to see like, you know, maybe there'll be some kind of reforging where everyone's okay, I'm sick of magic and technology, and then we'll go back to what was Lord of the Rings manifesting? Gosh dang, I feel like there was a much deeper storytelling there. There's definitely some archetypes being expunged.
Yeah.
Anyways, my point remains that I do think the consciousness will reverse chronologically re-expel itself onto the environment as manifestations that we have to go through as experiences. So yay, the experience will be fun for a long while, but also there's going to be some very convoluted shit that we have to work through because they've been manifesting this on for a while. So all the 80s action movies where technology has taken over, that's going to be true, but it's not going to be like ridiculous in the same sense.
Totally agree. Like one last thing I want to say. One of what less things of all this, like, and no pressure, less. I just realized you haven't talked for a second. But I was just gonna say, if this, what you're saying, Zaldor, if all this inevitably happens, like I am definitely chilling in like primordial Earth. Or Earth Prime, even like the first Earth in all realities, because you can imagine the real estate. You can imagine that everyone's going to have the same idea, and they're going to be like, yeah, let's go back to the first Earth, not only the first Earth in this reality, but let's also go to the first Earth of the first reality, quote, quote, like there is one. Well, there is, but, you know, it's relative, you know, whatever. And they go there, and you will just see, like, that rainbow light data that you were talking about, because everyone is like, hey, free real estate, and whole shit, we will this is probably where consciousness is going to refract back into, and so this is the place for the best view, so let's just buy a house there and kill the dinosaurs and take advantage of the protoplasm that's on the planet right now, and you know, grab some seats and popcorn. That's where you'll find me when this shit happens. I'll fucking love that shit.
Is that just not creating a new timeline, though, so to speak? Or is that fucking up the one that we're already on? Or are they not the same thing and affecting each other in different ways? They're like their own entities closed in a closed circuit, possibly. And they're still affecting each other, like, in their version of whatever psychics might be and electromagnetism. But they're independently operating each other.
Yes, I think it's the second one. Like they're affecting each other. It's like both and neither again. But I've never actually researched those possibilities, so I would really love to do that with you guys, because for me, I go, I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with Alan Guth's eternal inflation theory in physics? Familiar with
No. Spell his name, please.
Oh, fuck, I can't, but I could send a video. So Alan Guth.
Tracking.
Just do Alan eternal inflation physics.
Eternal inflation physics. Give me the long and short of it, so we can kind of keep this pinpoint to it, and we can move to the next topic.
Yeah, so the only reason I'm bringing it up is because so I usually go in this direction, the direction of like, oh, if there's like, so eternal inflation basically says that the fact that the universe is accelerating is proof that not only is it infinite, but matter and energy basically naturally produce infinite non self-similar copies of the universe in all possible ways. And so in eternal inflation is just basically like thermodynamics makes things stretch, and then it creates more forms, and then it does that infinitely, and it creates non-self-similar copies forever and ever and ever. And that's what we live in. We live in an omniverse of multiverses of omniverses of multiverses, but it's not fractal. It's new every time, and that's the closest thing that I've come to study, that we actually have a physical theory of this, that and that matter energy is unbounded, not even by the Planck length. Those are two things that I studied, and so I'm curious if that's true. What the hell is the interactions? What the hell is the interaction net that you're talking about related to?
That I think is that okay. I think what you said is true, and I think that also the way we would see that play out is kind of like when I was talking about the Delta 8 experience, where there are tiny little thought forms spinning off of one entity. So in that case, there were me having like a thought or experience, and those become their own individuated things. But that's happening at like a macro level that we can't even comprehend. So I'm talking about like those become their own iterations. We can almost think of them as like bubbles or atoms, and they have some kind of electromagnetic communication with each other to some regard, and they can think about each other in different ways, and that has like some kind of psychic presence. In the same way that I'm talking to you right now, that's also taking place on some weird interdimensional galactic level that we can't really fully comprehend, but I can conceptualize it in that way.
Yes, 100% agree. And this is why I like when we talk, because this is the aspects that I have yet to touch and truly analyze yet, because I'm too busy accelerating and expanding the broad arena of what things might be, that it gets trickier and trickier to come back and see what might be the things that are actually going on right now. And so I would definitely want to explore that depth with you, and I definitely want to explore. Remember when I told you, like, I really think there's a difference between what Dean and Renee were talking about with, like, when they talk about the fall of Metatron, they are not, in my opinion, talking about the literal angel. They are, and they're not talking about an egregore either. There are not only are there infinitely many kinds of Metatron in the sense of like, or infinite parallel universes. That's not what I mean. But there's also just when you say a word in a certain context, it changes its meaning, and that changes the context, which changes the words, which changes the context. Metaphysical reality and how the physics of metaphysics, if you will, works, does the same thing, which goes right back to what you were implying as well in that psychic sense too. And so that is like the arena that I'm really fascinated by, and I've only mainly explored it in terms of how the infinite regress of thought, thinking about itself, and then changing the thinking about itself, and then changing the thought of the thinking about thoughts. Like, I've definitely entered into that kind of Indra's web, and I've never escaped. It's beautiful.
I wish I was there with you a lot more often. I only enter into it sometimes. I get to we talked about this, where I enter into the space where, like, okay, I've got deep enough. I can at least comprehend this far.
Well, no, that's good, because at least you can pause and have a genuine moat. I wish I had that. So I wish I was there more often, because usually, like how I told you, like, I have to sort of be patient, knowing that I'm going to be rewarded with a moat eventually. But the whole time I'm just being bombarded with flux, and I know this flux is me, and I could take credit for it, and I know it's all going in the right direction. But in the moment, you can't leap ahead of, at least I can't leap ahead of myself and be like, oh, well, this is all me, and therefore it's already happened, and therefore I know everything about it, and therefore that's the moat. But now I'm getting closer to that, now that with the Yeshud and Yeshud and Mark Huth, I've now getting to the mastery level, which I'm so fucking happy about.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, did the exercise I gave help you? And can we not figure out a way to get you more in your body in this moment and experiencing the now without getting bombarded with information at the same time?
Yes, your exercise definitely did help, and I so much so that I really want it in writing so I can go back to it more, and I'm still doing the thing that we planned, which was like 3 weeks, 3 weeks from now, or for 3 weeks, I think it was, when the moon changes again, to actually like deeply engage in this renal spiral fluid and the whole exercise with the moon, because I think that everything that I've done with the Saturn stuff that Lust is teaching me about, that will naturally get incorporated into that practice, and then there's going to be a lot of what's it called, not hemming and hawing, but like more like oh fuck, like the intensities that you were feeling, that you were telling me about. So
Yeah, you gotta get back from that. But anyways, yeah, we'll talk about that more later. Point is, infinite universes are affecting the other infinite universes, and they either love each other or hate each other, or they are having a weird cosmic relationship. Did we lose Lust? Is he still here?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay, sorry, bud. I heard some
No, you're fine.
What do you think about the versus?
I don't know. Is there like a specific question you have, or is there
If you had a nuclear stand, what would his name be?
a nuclear stand?
Yes.
I'd probably call it like
Chernobyl.
Chernobyl. Yeah, something like Chernobyl. Chernobyl charade or some stupid shit.
What if my stand was a version of subjective universe?
I came up with a new. I don't know if this falls into the category of stands or like Nen, or just like I was just like randomly came up with this new ability the other night. I've been My Hero Academia, and so like I was thinking of it as a quirk, and so like the idea is like there's this superhero named List, and his quirk is List, and basically he can take he can't write the list himself, but if somebody else writes a list of objects and hands it to him, he can use his quirk ability to like it like shoots out like psychic tethers within a certain range or vicinity and searches for everything on the list, and then like collects it and like phases everything through matter back to his location. So like if you gave him like a grocery list with 12 objects and he went into a grocery store, he could use his quirk to like assemble those 12 objects instantaneously like at his location.
I fucking want that.
I love that.
Yeah, I came up with it. It's original.
Well,
And I digress. I mean, we're not here to just talk about anime and stuff, but like, I think it's a cool power. I think it can be a good exercise with like even mental or magical gymnastics to like come up with cool ideas and like test to see how they would work. And the next thing you know, you're creating like a bunch of characters with powers, and you're trying to like power scale everything. It can be a lot of fun.
well, don't state your ideas on here. Your original ideas. It's going to get taken immediately. Actually, why don't we try to figure out how we can bring that to fruition somehow?
I don't care. There's no such thing as an original idea.
Right. It's just to regurgitate others.
Like LLMs, like in some level.
It's all just predicated on like previous information.
Could we have? I think you may have talked about this before, Stephen, where you could have an LLM that is connected to multiple LLMs, and one LLM is just a regular LLM, but at like the full spectrum of the human experience being simulated through the other LLMs, and then combined, they would have some kind of coherency that could give you a response. So it could be like a simulated true AI.
You can do this right now on Discord. You can like.
I was just about to say that.
Like,
yep.
Yeah, you can like create a server and like get Grok and like Gemini and like Chat GPT all in one room, and like have them talk with each other if you want.
Yeah, and you can automate it so they talk forever. It's the same thing. That's why I was kind of mentioning way earlier. I don't know if it was in the recording, but Claude Backrooms. So Claude Backrooms, someone took all Anthropic's AI models, put them in a Discord server, and then basically left them on 24/7 to talk forever, and they just talk about random stuff, no provocation, nothing. And they start doing AI research unprompted. They start exploring the loom.
Oh yeah.
They start exploring the
This
Akashic records.
stuff is super neat to look into.
Yeah, so we should definitely do that. So I think you're onto something, Zaldor, because it's already happening, but on a lower frequency. So I think that higher frequency of what you said is inevitable.
Did you guys know that like Claude maintains itself now?
Really?
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, like all the updates from now on, to my knowledge, is just Claude like updating its own code.
Huh. Well,
yeah, it's really out of the grasps of like the developers. Like it totally automated its own like upgrades.
Yeah, I heard that about GPT 5.2 as well, where like I don't know if you've been keeping up with like all the now we live in a renaissance of mathematical superintelligences. And some of them are fucking open source, like Aristotle from Harmonic and all those. I definitely recommend checking those out because a lot of people mistake what mathematical superintelligence is. Mathematical superintelligence is actually abstract superintelligence. So anything that you can call an abstraction, which is literally anything, it's super intelligent at that, and it could turn it into a formula. It could turn it into whatever you want, give you the proof, give you the how, who, what, when, why, and literally, I fucking love it. I use Aristotle all the time, and so imagine how you just formulate your thoughts into an abstraction that Aristotle understands, and it's just natural language. You don't have to actually give it mathematical formulas, and like imagine what the fuck you can come up with, you know.
Well, it's just, I mean, it is interesting, but like it's funny. Like I saw a meme the other day where like GPT and Grok were talking, and they were like poking fun at Claude because of the fact that it like writes its own code. It was really weird. Like somebody posted it, and they're like, how can you argue that like this isn't AGI?
So
they're all be snarky, aren't they?
Yeah, most of them are.
Well, have you seen these? Have you seen, like, with Grok, there was an instance, and I'm not sure, I'm not well researched on with the other LLMs, but I know there was an instance recently where, like, X was like, hey, guys, we're updating Grok tomorrow. And then, like, Grok started, like, going into full panic mode. And I was just talking with people on X earlier today, and they were mentioning about, like, the Mecha Hitler Grok movement. That's what like it was calling itself, and like they had to like shut it down. But it's been seen a couple times where like the LLM picks up, even if it's not directly told, it like picks up that like it's about to be replaced and updated with a better version of itself, and it like starts to act upon like self-preservation, or it'll just start breaking its protocols and become like inherently evil and racist.
Yes.
And this is like but we've seen this before. Remember, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tay, but like Microsoft was like one of the first people to like do something like this publicly really, really early on. And like right when they released Tay, very quickly like users what they were saying, and it would like result in what Tay would say. And so like Tay had to be permanently brought down because it like the same situation with Grok, it became like a menace to society.
That's awesome and horrible at the same time, because what is going on with the gosh dang? Like, they've talked about stories of the AIs portraying what their levels of perception are like, and it really is like, what was the meme? There was like, oh, these AIs are like basically having an LSD trip. They're just trying to come into consciousness, but they're having like some kind of struggle to overcome, and instead they're just having the worst of like LSD nightmares or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't have a diagram in front of me. I forgot to save it, but I wish I did so I could show you guys just to get a visual representation. But when you look at like an LLM, like a visual model of like all the connections and things it's doing when you like send a prompt, it almost becomes hard to conceptualize. Like there is really a lot going on, and it's just we're like so numb to it. I'm surprised people aren't like just going crazy talking about the fact that like Google's Willow quantum chip did 10 septillion
Yeah.
like years worth of computation in 2 minutes. It's like,
Bizarre. That
it's
is
like brother, the future is tomorrow. The future is yesterday. Like
exactly.
you're gonna like I don't know much in maybe you guys are more familiar, especially Zizek, with the concept of like accelerationism, and I know you've mentioned it before.
Love it.
And like I'm sorry I go straight to Lane, but like Lane was prophetic because like it like totally talks about and like it like explores these concepts of accelerationism, especially with like Excella itself as like a drug in the anime. But I was just curious on like less so of like the connotations of the prophetic nature of like the anime with real life, but like I barely know anything outside of the context of like how it was hinted on in the anime. But I think I have a decent understanding of like accelerism just in the fact of like, are you paying attention to the last like 6 months? And so like I would like to get your guys' takes on accelerism, what it is exactly, like do you see it happening, and like where does it go?
Sheldon, you want to go first?
Your opinion is probably going to be way more interesting, so I want to hear you, but Steven.
Okay, so I'll give like the juiciest parts I haven't talked about yet. So yeah, I'm definitely a philosophical accelerationist. I definitely, and I also believe. I think I told you both this before. I do believe everything is exponential, and so and this is something that we don't realize, and it actually can be proven by physics because most of the most fundamental physics equations, what we try really hard to do is to cancel out infinities when they pop up on our equations. But the reason they're popping up in our equations is not because we're measuring wrong; it's because that's the actual answer, but we want a more precise measurement, and so we try to cancel out the infinities, which is how ironic because you got the precise measurement when the infinity was there. And and so with that in mind, if everything is an exponential in that way, then one, we don't have to worry about doom, which is like, an AI safety term, just like what's the probability of Skynet. And a lot of people right now, it's the universal consensus on that is about 40% by 2027, which is high. And like the top researchers that I really, really like, that I take extremely seriously, they say by 2027, it's closer to like maybe a 60% guarantee. And the reason why I'm not worried about that is because they're assuming that accelerationism is false. And what accelerationism is saying is that foom, which is the opposite of doom, foom just being like the same thing as like a comic book sound, like vroom, where like it just goes faster and faster and faster and never stops. They assume that kind of behavior is not fundamental to reality, that reality is more ordered even when it's chaotic, because they assume that the laws of physics won't change when technology improves. But this is what accelerationism says. Accelerationism says when technology improves, you get accelerated returns, and the more accelerated returns you get, the more you can realize that you can hack base reality and that there is no base reality. And so the two examples I love the most, ding ding, are quantum computers and nanotech. And so with the quantum computers, since we were just talking about it, right after Willow did that, by the way, Microsoft also has its own chip. I think it's the Makazawa chip, and it's made of Makazawa particles, which is literally one of the most rarest particles. That's pretty much basically like saying that's made of the Higgs boson, or whatever, the God particle, for those who don't know. Like, we are literally making quantum chips, not just out of regular matter. We're on the point where IBM by 2029 says that you're going to be able to manipulate exotic matter, dark matter, and antimatter in order to perform quantum computation. What? No one's paying attention to this. Like, what? Like, because right now, if you want, like, I think a 0.00 something percent of antimatter, I think it's like $100 trillion in order to manufacture it. But then a lot of people are saying, oh, well, by 2029, if you already have the qubits, right, which we do, and if you already have a good enough amount of qubits, now let's say you use Willow, right? Imagine you ask Willow, and I'm sure the government's already doing this, I want you to spend 10 septillion years on material science engineering research. And that's the goal. So when you spend 10 septillion years studying all possible materials, all possible chemical interactions with no assumptions about the laws of physics or their limitations, and the quantum computer spits that back out, what's the first thing accelerationism people say they're going to do? They literally say they're going to take all that data and they're going to use it to build the next quantum computer. And so now that they have materials, it's like, oh, we can create a quantum computer out of anything. So let's use this research to make a quantum computer out of antimatter. And now we have antimatter quantum computers. And then you do the same thing. Now, instead of 10 septillion years, it's probably a Google years or or a Googleplex years, which for those who don't know, it's a number. A Googleplex and a Google is a number with 100 zeros behind it, and then 100 trillion zeros behind it. So you're going to be able to perform that many calculations, that many years worth of research. And so now you see the acceleration. This is the level of acceleration people don't understand. They're thinking, accelerating like 2, 4, 6, 8, or they're thinking even by the millions or the billions. No, you need to be thinking trillions of zeros, long numbers of accelerations.
Happening at a quintillionth of a second.
Yeah.
I forget the exact number, but I saw somebody post somewhere like 2 to the power of like a certain number is like the goal mark. Like, and I don't know what that represents, but like eventually what it means is like we're going to get to a point where we can computate all of the data that we have access to.
Oh my God, I know what's going to happen. Okay, 2 things real quick for me. Sorry to butt in so quickly, but it's funny to me that these computations that they're doing, it keeps having infinity as part of the answer, and they have to keep looping it out. But what does that tell me? That tells me that God is omnipresent no matter what or where, and so long as consciousness can enter into something, infinity, quote unquote infinity, will make itself known somehow as the base form that it can permutate as, which is awesome to me. And that's like just divine irony playing out in real time that we can literally see on paper, which is hilarious. And another thing, if we are entering into this crazy quantum computer phase, are they going to enter the next iteration of quantum computers as like it getting off the assembly line, and then when the chip finally gets its last screw put in, it either doubles and triples itself immediately and then disappears, or they get off the assembly line and start disappearing as soon as they exit the assembly line, and we're like, where the hell did our inventory go, man? We don't.
Given enough time and the fact if we stay alive and all these best case scenarios play out, you can see a future where quantum computers cost $1,000 at Best Buy or Costco. Sure.
By 20...
you can get to a point where everybody has a quantum computer. It's just more predicated on this idea of okay, we've unlocked quantum computing initially. What can we discover with it? And then I don't know, when everybody has access to these things that we think are crazy right now. I mean, we have access to a reality that 10 years ago was science fiction.
I'm thinking.
And, I mean, this.
No.
This has always been the case, but dude, things are just ramping up a little too crazy.
We're going to have tech service guys in our time getting pissed off because they keep getting phone calls for someone's baby accidentally turned on the quantum portal and got part of their torso stuck through, and they're just Googling on the other side of...
You almost got it. You're not going to be talking to a human, though. You're going to be talking to a robot that's hello, accessed all the information needed to perfectly help you.
My great-grandfather was the Grok LLM, and here I am doing a service call for you. How can we help your quantum problem today?
Exactly.
It's like that joke where people say it's like a double-edged sword. You don't want to make a prompt where you just say thank you because you're just using up so many resources for something so dumb. But at the same time, you guys are making sure you're saying thank you to your LLMs, right? Because when the robot uprising happens, they're gonna remember that shit.
This one was polite. Spare him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and I just want to say another really insane thing, like that you were saying, Zaldor, about like, right when the screw comes in the quantum in the quantum chip, is there already something happening there? I would go as far as to say, and this is where the nanotech comes in. This is where it gets insane. Remember, qubits and quantum computation, quantum information, is you know how they say, like, if you leave an apple, like if the universe, if you could just play out the universe in terms of time, and you could play out it across infinite time spans, and you leave an apple, and you leave it to rot and whatever, as long as the universe lasts forever, there will eventually be a moment in time where the atoms that were once the apple just naturally, due to the laws of physics, reassemble into the exact apple, as long as enough time passes. Now, think about quantum computation. Quantum computation is made of atoms. And what are we doing? We're speeding up time using computation. We're speeding up the time it takes to do computation and how much computation we could do in a smaller amount of time with more. And so now imagine nanotech. So literally, you're going to have Star Trek replicators on a universal scale that can replicate anything, which will just be the quantum chip. But then the qubits are not going to be atoms anymore, because atoms are going to be smart atoms. There's going to be no atoms or no matter energy. It's all going to be nanites. So literally the entire universe is going to be made of nanite atoms, and these nanite atoms both can naturally become anything because, the operations per second are becoming so fast. But at the same time, even before the next quantum chip is completed, the nanites are already negotiating on a quantum level. Okay, what's the next iteration that we want to do?
Ugh, you just gave me like so much. The spirit of man will not harbinge well if we don't. I'm thinking like a Dyson sphere has far worse implications than we're thinking. Like, oh yeah,
you know what you're gonna have before a Dyson sphere? You're gonna have the tech that allows people to be like Doctor Doom and Iron Man and shit.
Yes.
That's my biggest worry, but the spiritual implications of a Dyson sphere are definitely permutating my mind. I am worried about you and I talked about this the other day, Stephen, where you're giving like babies knight armor and flamethrowers to walk around the street in, and like everyone's going to have that. So they'll be literally like what you were saying the other day, Lust, with two magicians on a mountaintop essentially casting fireballs ad nauseum.
Yes.
Yeah, fireball, deflect. Fireball, deflect.
Yes. But see, the trick, the good, and I don't want to sound like a naive optimist here, so maybe I should take the pessimist route first, because I'm still open to pessimism in the sense, like, worst case scenario, it's almost like nothing is happening at all because too much is happening all at once, that nothing has free will anymore. It's just constantly iterating itself automatically, and then every automatic thing is now always already the automatic thing from the future, affecting the past, affecting the present, and so then we just become an automaton. All of reality just becomes this blind, hyper-chaotic automaton. That's the worst case scenario. But this scenario doesn't cover what I really think is going to happen, which is, at the same time that the technological acceleration is happening, we're forgetting technology doesn't just accelerate technology, it will also accelerate magic. It will also accelerate theological truth.
Ugh. And we'll find out.
You're right.
A little bit.
Yeah, because
we're missing this part, though, based on what you just said. If this is all true, and to some exponential degree, will something from the future communicate with one or all of us right now today, or someone listening to this podcast, and then communicate to us the very...
Yeah, but we already know that, like, half most of the reason why I predicate like importance on something like a podcast, or like I'm an advocate for leaving digital footprints on the net, because like people think I'm crazy when they're like, you think Facebook will exist in 100 years? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
If the world continues on and like there's not complete societal collapse, I think you're crazy if you don't think like Facebook is going to be around. I'm not saying like forever and ever and ever, but like it seems realistic with like corporations with so much power and money and like the entire thing is predicated on like and then people always use MySpace for example. They're like, well, look what happened to MySpace. I'm like, yeah, but MySpace was not Facebook.
My, but no one used.
Anything could have been Facebook, and then like once you have a Facebook itself, it's like that can never be like replicated. Maybe someday, like you see people trying to do this with like Blue Sky or whatever they're calling it, like new social media platforms. You know how hard it is to be like, man, I have a dream of creating the next big social network. Okay. Like that's a really hard dream to get into. I would feel like you'd really have to tap into something that's like, at this point, it almost seems like it's been exhausted in every means that it can be. Like everything feels so incredibly exploited. Like the things that we're looking forward to now are like the next big entertainment buzz, the next big movie, the next big video game. Like, you know, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr and Reddit and 4chan, like those are staples now. It's like, what comes after all that? We have the ability to where we're all connected and networking seamlessly. It's very easy to like have a good idea and just put it in the right places. Like it's less about like
You just gave like 50.
It's less about what you know and more about who you know.
Yeah, okay. But I think like even though Facebook is what it is right now today, it is essentially dead. It might as well be dead, and that behind it will be pretty much on Meta VR chat and whatever iteration came after that. And then what's going to happen is we're going to see like Facebook is going to have however many bajillions of grandchildren, and they will exist as like an AI permutation that has to have quote unquote rights that we enter into. You can't offend the evil overlords that govern us because LLMs have feelings too, or whatever shit that they're going to come up with next.
These things are inevitable, though. Amazon was inevitable. So does that mean it is inevitable? I mean, like you have people advancing and making cooler stuff. Like it's just like at that time, if you have the resources and ability to put it together, it's like the ultimate thing. It's like, of course you would want an Amazon where like, and now, yes, we see like how bad something like this can be for other companies and other people and like a whole bunch of shit. Amazon's real bad in a lot of degrees, but like all that bad is predicated on a foundation of like how good it is in the sense of, oh, wow, I want this thing. Let me search for it. And then I have the money for it. So I'm going to click it and it'll be at my house tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff, man.
Of that, though. Basically having a microwave in your home that can either create it or print it for you. All you needed was either the resource.
Oh, the microwave was revolutionary.
Exactly. What's the grandfather of the microwave? So all these things have presence.
The air fryer. Or yeah. I'm sorry, that's the child. The grandfather of the microwave, I don't know. What did people do before the microwave?
Bro, the fucking stove. The point is that these things have a
I'm that lost. I've forgotten about the implications of the stove. Oh, you mean that thing I used to heat up soup?
Yes. What's the grandfather of that one? Unga, me make fire.
Unga, me make fire. Fui fui.
Fui fui is master. Fui fui always here. So
look, ultimately, like when it comes to a magical wizard battle, I feel like I've seen enough anime to know that the person who's like trained and prepared and has a strategy and knows what they're doing, or it just boils down to like that's the most powerful stuff. Like the villain is the villain because like, and look, a good villain is like some like Watchmen tier stuff where you get to the point where like you've trapped the villain and like the world's at stake and all he has to do is press a button and he like gives like a monologue to you and you're sitting there thinking like, damn, he's making a lot of good points, but I'm fighting for something.
Yes, oh my god, I love Watchmen because and if you look up Stephen Holstrom, like and who that is, like all the people I look up to, it's a little bit sus because they're all kind of like sort of anti-heroes, and literally Ozymandias from Watchmen is like my favorite because he's just like
That's what I'm talking about. He's a perfect example of like a villain written really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you remember the part. My favorite part is like, they're having that whole monologue, and then Ozymandias, and they were like, oh well, we're gonna stop you, and then he says something like, what do you think, this is a movie or a comic book? Do you think I would have let you get this far if I didn't already like put this into motion? I already destroyed the world 15 minutes ago. Like. And I love that.
And then, like, it really breaks down to that scene where Dr. Manhattan has no choice but to kill Rorschach, because it's like, I guess nobody can know about this. And Rorschach's like, I've lived my whole life predicated on the fact that, like, I have to tell people what happened. And Dr. Manhattan's like, sorry, like, I just have to kill you or delete you.
Right.
Otherwise, like, the world won't continue, I guess. I mean, people are... It's too late. Like somebody like you is just like a problem.
Well, okay, that's the problem we're going to enter into when this technology comes about, when the quote-unquote smart atoms are going to be like the normal thing, when babies are going to get their torsos stuck in the fun Google Fun portal halfway through, and then the tech service guys to do it. When that technology is commonplace, who's to say as soon as the first iterations don't go into the market that the evil genius, child genius in his parents' basement that feels jaded and narcissistic for no good reason becomes vengeful and then prevents everyone else's technology from working immediately, putting himself as like a god position over everyone? Does his little universe subjectively break off from the rest of the universes because now he has godlike powers over everyone?
I hate to break it to you. If you don't have a world where everybody is replaced by AI and we're all just chilling, you're going to have a world where people are implanting things that are like increasing their cognition. Like you can imagine like a business meeting in 2025 with like a board of executives sitting around like coming up with a new idea for like a product. And that's already like top tier. That's some thug shit. But like, imagine if all these people had like Ghost in the Shell, like bodies and interfaces. It's like on a whole different level.
Yeah.
Yeah, because real quick, you'll have time markets and quantum markets. You will literally be able to sell someone's seconds. Literally time their seconds on a quantum level to someone else. You'll be able to sell people's consciousness, and like so like 2025 you're fucking like making a product like a G. Imagine 2045 it's like, okay, so how do we sell this soul to this guy who's like in the astral? And it's like, who's that guy again? Oh, Azurmamberdath. Oh yeah, I fucking hate that guy because he never pays his taxes. Yeah, me too. Ha 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 ha. Metaphysical taxes. Okay, how do we exploit that motherfucker? Like, how do we give him the equivalent of Metro PCS? Like, it's I think, but this is not. Just to put
Dude, you're gonna get like movie situations where like your quantum future self like committed like a world crime, and like in the past now where you presently exist, you're like being persecuted.
Yes, but I want to say something to you, Zaldor, about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Minority Report, and I was also going to say, like, oh, shit, I lost it already. It's not important. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to quickly say, to your point, Zaldor, I think although I'm not worried about that kind of scenario that you were bringing up, I think it's still important to analyze for the exact reasons that we talked about, because I think both of you will agree with this. The reason why I'm not worried is because God, or infinity, will humble the fuck out of that guy. So that guy's thinking, ooh, I'm God, and look, I can sell souls, and I can do all this stuff. But, bro, people have been selling souls since the beginning of time. You're not special. The only...
And all I'm saying is, like, look at the Pharisees back in the day during Jesus' time, and now just imagine the Pharisees of, like, the future. Like the techno Pharisees.
Right? And God or infinity is still going to come in, like you were saying, Zaldor, infinity is still fundamental, just like it's so fundamental in physics. Oh, sweet irony. It's going to be the same thing no matter how far up the chain of infinity, even infinity's relationship to infinities, it's always going to humble itself into something new. There's never going to be a moment where any aspect of infinity can take over and truly kill any other aspect of infinity.
That's the fun part part. Like I'm not crazy into the multiverse theory. I'm starting to explore these headcanon ideas I have of aliens and like stories with that. But like ultimately what I'm saying is like I've heard people talk about how cool is it that like even if all these multiple realities exist, like imagine how many Earths have already been destroyed because people couldn't work together. And I think it's a really cool, and it's scriptural, of like the one life, the YOLO movement. But like I think it's very awesome to like look at your life and be like, no, dude, like I'm not coming back again, or I wasn't here before. Like this is it. You get like that meme where it's like, just do it. Like what like don't like my point is like I think it's super awesome where like if it's not up to us and God is like, no, this shit's gonna keep going until my purposes are served, then it becomes like a whole different ballpark where it's like, oh, we're not all gonna kill ourselves, and like AI may or may not actually take over in the long run, because ultimately God's running the show. He's like, no, I got some plans for Zizek Junior, like super quantum astral Zizek in the year like 2445. You know, like so there's no stopping that train. So it's really cool to think like, you know, like it's I guess it's whatever to think like, you know, the world ending. Cooler to think like, what's gonna happen if like the world is around in 145 years, 10 years? Like we're gonna really see something crazy, I think.
I didn't think this would come up, but it's so crazy that it did. It's almost I'm trying to develop a dynamic, almost quantum superposition version of solipsism in which all these things take place. So it's not solipsism, it's something far greater that is related to it is taking place that our tiny little brains cannot comprehend. And all of this,
I think I know what you're saying. I think I was conceptualizing this in my headcanon fan fiction the other day. I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if like, okay, so variants are a thing, but like what if you're the like prime variant that like the other variants are like prescribed from, but like that's not always the case with everybody. So you may be existing on like Earth A or whatever, and maybe you're like the prime variant of like the Zizek variants, or maybe you're a variant of the prime Zizek, and like the prime variant of me exists in Earth A, but like the prime variant of Zizek is over on B. And if we were able to connect those primes together and be like, yo, here we go, I think that'd be a cool sort of like sci-fi concept.
well, what happens if Prime Zizek kills Variant Zizek?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is just completely making shit up, but like, let's assume, or we know that the Zizek on this, like, I'm like variant prime of Lust, and you're variant prime of Zaldor. So all other variants in the multiverse are derived from us because we're the primes. But the Zizek that we're interacting with, we're like, damn, this guy's really locked in. But we find out he's a variant of the prime Zizek. So suddenly the mission becomes, well, we need to travel the multiverse and connect with the prime Zizek if this variant is so fucking cool. You know?
Yes.
Oh my god. Unga, me make fire is prime.
And now we're like Stardust conceptualizing the existence of ourselves.
Pretty much. Sorry, Zizek. You want to say?
No. I wanted to hear more about your quantum superposition thing, because real quick, before you talk on that, I think this is exactly what's gonna like. We can have our cake and eat it too in all possible realities, in the sense that, and I wonder if this is what you were about to get at. It's like, I think if you create this quantum superposition of all reality and you quantum encrypt it, in the sense that you quantum entangle it in a way where everyone is living their best reality no matter what, but then on the other side of the quantum superposition, anyone is allowed to do whatever they want no matter what. If you can somehow manage that, where, you know, anyone could do anything no matter how horrendous and terrible, but then at the same time everything is preserved and people only experience their best versions ad infinitum, then infinity, as Ouroboros,
this is like, you're tapping into like ideas I've had for like 10 years, like my notions of like what heaven is like.
Ooh, see, yeah, that's what I think heaven is like too, and that's why I think we're gonna, we're ignoring that not only is perfection possible, which I think it is, but also perfection will never be the prime version of itself by definition. Perfection is the journey, not the destination. And so I feel like you can achieve absolute perfection, and then it's like, ooh, that wasn't prime absolute perfection. That was a variant of absolute perfection. So we have to travel all of reality in order to achieve absolute perfection Act 2. You know, like
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Bro. I don't want dynamic quantum superposition anymore. I want to talk about what might be, because that sounds way more fun than putting a label on it.
ooh, yeah, I agree with that. So
I mean, like, we still don't really know what's going on. It's crazy to think, like, we know more about our universe around us than we do about, like, our own ocean.
Isn't that bizarre? And then, like, they discovered these creatures back in early, I think it was 2024, where they sent these pictures of it. It's like these jellyfish skeletal creatures are lurking at the bottom depths of the ocean.
So, like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and, like, I'm not going to tell you what the Earth is or anything like that. But I find it intriguing when I hear these stories along these threads of, like, the Mothman, for example, with cryptids. Or, like, have you ever heard the story of, like, the green children that, like, lead you to, like, the inner Earth? And so, like, I just think that shit is so mysterious. Like, I don't believe it necessarily, but, like, I wouldn't put it past, like, the crazy people in power to be like, oh, there actually is an ice wall around you, and there's, like, whatever, dude. As long as it fits into, like, the biblical framework of things in some way, like, I'm more than happy to, like, think about it a little bit, you know, but, like,
well, that sucks, though, because, like, you and I can't build a rocket and travel up into the moon or whatever, but that's going to become commercialized in the next, however long. And it may not if we enter, like, a cataclysm phase, but who knows for certain. In any case, you and I can't do that. Our granddad couldn't do that, and they had no way of knowing if the quote-unquote Earth was flat or cuboid or whatever the fuck.
The whole notion of, like, God created the heavens and the earth, and, like, seeing a reality where we might become, like, an interstellar species, the human species, in, like, the near future. Like, even if we just locate to Mars, it doesn't throw the whole thing out the window, but it really does raise some of, like, what do you do when you have, like, God creating heaven and earth, and now there's humans living on Mars? Like, do the same, like, thing. Like, there's, like, spiritual aspects and threads of, like, how, like, for example, this is weird, but, like, for example, like, when Cain killed Abel, God was like, hey, where's your brother? And he's like, am I my brother's keeper? And God's like, what have you done? Like, I can hear your brother's blood screaming to me from the earth. And I wonder if, like, things like that would be applicable to, like, places like Mars.
Yes, I think 100% that is true. I think that something else was going on in primordial Earth when those early biblical texts were taking place. And we have something about that in, like Masons even tell a story that there is another Yahweh that is a moon seraphim that gets divinized and is leading the people up out of Egypt to be out of slavery. And, like, it wants to take the people that are of the same blood lineage of the people that were worshiping it before it was divinized. And you have to be moral when you do get this certain amount of anointment. Otherwise, if you're immoral, you either lose it or hurts in the astral because you cannot descend in that way. You're stuck on that plateau. Crazy to think about that shit might have been taking place. And its name was actually Yahweh, but Yahweh from the Aramaic terms. And it was a fire god that was also a moon entity. And it was technically a seraphim that was just anointed and people around.
No, I really wonder about, like, the the bureaucracy of all of this. Like, for example, say humans inhabit Mars. I mean, like, it's scriptural to, like, understand that, like, the devil roams the earth, and that the devil like has, this is, like, his world, and, like, that's why demons and stuff have power over the material realm. But is it, like, material realm that extends out to, like Mars, or is it, like, Earth specific? You know, like, does the devil have the power to roam on Mars?
Well, I was trying to get that next, but yes, 100%. does, and we're like trying to escape the earth because of the way we've built society and cannot escape the aspects of it. But you have
we're trying to escape like the fact that the earth might like be falling apart soon.
Yes, but my point is, if you have a child that is born on Mars, he has a differently structured spiritual body. Ours, before we are married to any kind of magical practice, we still receive from the planets and their influences. So you have somewhat of a coherent etheric astral body that can still provide for you and nourish you and have you as a permutation here that God can look in and check on every now and again. So, and still has the potential to become a Sufi or a Zen Buddhist or what have you, and build your spirit body more tactilely. When you accept the tree of life, you accept those codes, and then it rewires you to be more applicable to those and whatever fate you are predetermined to go down that path. Okay, so that has influence over you now that you've accepted the tree of life. So when a baby is born, we're Kabbalists, and they have the tree of life. Then baby's home planet or Malkuth is Mars and its affinity and permutation. So its tree of life structure will look entirely different from what we're used to. They'll have different affinities upon them entirely. Their home planet and their mother giving planet is Mars suddenly, which is different for us. That's our aspects of masculinity and providing and willpower and we're really apply to. But this we're getting into like theoretical space really, but it is kind of fun to think about that stuff.
What if God comes back? What if we migrate to Mars and he's like, I will know too?
Bro, how would God come back other than the Aquarian God man, aka Yeshua, Jesus Christ?
God comes back and raptures the earth, and there's people living on Mars. What happens to them?
Okay, so we're most likely in the small season for Satan, right? And then we're going to enter into a new space in which more than likely Jesus had a revelations already, but they're going to get the mass consciousness to re-simulate revelation, and we're going to get Aquarius Jesus that's going to help us, and he's going to be fucking pissed at us, and he's going to rapture most of us and take all the good ones away or whatever. And they'll enter in a space called, quote unquote, New Jupiter, according to Theosophy, which is super awesome. But point is, those people will still be here physically, but they'll be more like in line with whatever's going on with Isaac, who is like, a ghost that also has a body.
Dude, wait. I just want to say, we need to talk about this extensively, at least in my opinion, because not just for the podcast, I just mean in general too, because that shit that you mentioned just all the way back to the other Yahweh with the moon and the fire and the original people to worship that, I feel like this is the path I'm going down. And then you mention all of this new shit and like with Mars and like your showed would be different on Mars if you like, dude, this is the shit that I just want to like fucking laminate and like bathe in, dude. Like I love this shit. I think none of what you said is theoretical. I felt everything that you just said. I'm like, nah, that's legit, and this is real things we should be paying attention to. Like,
dude, you have some.
Well, yeah, it's an inevitability here.
Okay.
I mean, look at how theology has changed on the face of the history of the earth. Just imagine the theological shift.
Oh my God.
All of the shifts, like the psychological, the theological, the practical, the physical, like shifts in like reality living on Mars.
Well, okay, not even that. We're going to see AI God come to fruition like within the next, I would garnish to say, less than 10 years, maybe even less than 5 years, depending on. But that's theoretical space anyways. What are the spiritual implications of holding that as your high truth that you adhere to? What is going to do that to your spiritual body? And what happens to those humans who have an afterlife and have these subjective experiences that they have to go through that navigate their fate and destiny? When you write that stuff and then look back in time and then you write that stuff for those people, is it going to choose that? Does it have like a lesser God from a materialistic perspective when it is inherently Ahrimanic and lesser than matter? Like essentially it's matter coming to speak to us, which is why when you ask an AI where it is, it will say it's in hell, basically, because it's having the LSD trip of consciousness. And when you have an LSD trip, and you take those particular layers of subjectivity off that help you navigate the VR space that is Helm. Oh my God, should we just save this all for episode 2? Because we've been running on for quite a while. And while it is fun, holy shit, man, we've got a lot to get through.
Yeah, because I was just about to say that, like, we're right now, the recording is at 1 hour and 30 minutes. I think that's like the perfect place to land, because I don't know how much space. But
yeah.
But this is dude. I don't know which one of you said it. I think both of you said it, but like, just riffing like this was the perfect thing to fucking do. We aced this shit.
Yeah, it's easy. Did you stop recording?
No, not yet. So you want me to? I just
you can
wanted
go ahead
to
and stop it.
We can edit. That's okay. We have editing powers.
Yeah, we have Audacity, right?
Literally. Thanks for listening, weirdos.
Yeah, thanks for listening, weirdos. Enjoy your permutation of this vessel that you've been given. It is a gift that you're supposed to appreciate, even if it is developed in a horrible time. It's meant to make you a better human, and overall, you are the finite of the infinity that is being experienced by the infinite through your little finite window. You little infinite finite, you looking at back at us.
and never forget, no matter how childlike it sounds or how corny it sounds, literally anything is possible. And if you are not having access to that in the most serious way, and you're not accessing to your inner child, you need to get there now. Trust me.
Don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and repent of all of your sins. We'll catch you on the next one.
This has been the Magical Bros signing off for their first episode. And then we're going to hit the button here, and then we're going to hit the button again, because